And these institutions are Kenya Post Authority and the Teacher Service Commission. 3, Mr. Speaker, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year that ended 30th June 2017 and the certificate therein. 1, the Witness Protection Agency. 2, Kenya Film. Mr. Speaker, again, the minority leader, in accordance with the Standing Order 20 and Article 108, has no place to sit because a member of ANC, the Vihiga Women Rep, decides to occupy a seat that doesn't belong to him. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of order. So the honorable minority leader must be given his seat. Minority whip. Speaker.
What is this?
What's happening?
What is this infant behavior? Member for Vihiga, the place where you are seated is designated to be the seat for the minority whip.
Honorable Speaker, ODM is official opposition. It has the numbers and will protect ODM. Some of us are ready to protect ODM from the small parties. Speaker, number 3, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year that ended 30th June 2017 and the certificate therein. Number 1, Witness Protection Agency, Kenya Film Classification Board, Political Parties Fund, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the Kenya School of Law, the Nairobi Center for International Arbitration, Kenya Bureau of Statistics, State Department of Broadcasting and Telecommunication, and finally, Mr. Speaker, Anti-Doping Agency.
The Chairperson, Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Wandai.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 13, 2018. Report of the Public Accounts Committee on the accounts of National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the National Assembly, the National Lands Commission, and the Parliamentary Service Commission for the year 2015-2016. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 13th, 2018. Report of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs on the vetting of the nominee for appointment as the Solicitor General. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Vice Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 13, 2018. Report of the Committee on Delegation Legislation on the National Construction Authority Amendment Regulation 2017. Thank you.
Honourable members, before we proceed, let me take this opportunity to introduce students and pupils from the following institutions in the Speaker's Gallery. Kikuyu Township Primary School, Kikuyu Constituency, Kiambu County. Nairobi Muslim Academy, Langata Constituency, Nairobi County. In the Public Gallery, Chief Bogori Girls High School, Mara Constituency, Tharaka Nithi County. Those from Nkai Murungia Primary School, Kajiado North Constituency, Kajiado County. They are all welcome to observe the proceedings in the National Assembly. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The member for, which constituency is that? Is it Bahari or Jomvu? Is it a member for Nyali? You are to give notice today in Kiswahili because you wrote to requiring that you be allowed to move your motion in Swahili. Your request has been granted, and therefore you will have to give notice afresh, because if you give notice in one language, the motion can only proceed, especially when you're moving, in the language in which you gave notice. So you're free now to do as you asked for.
Shukran. Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba kutoa azimio la hoja ifuatayo kwamba tukifahamu kifungu cha 43 cha katiba ya Kenya kimeweka wazi kwamba kila Mkenya ana haki ya kuwa na kiwango bora cha afya kinachojumuisha afya bora ya uzazi. Aidha, katika utaratibu wa ajenda ya maendeleo ya baada ya mwaka 2015, dunia imewajibikia afya kwa wote na kutimiza lengo endelevu la maendeleo la 3 almaarufu kwa lugha ya Kimombo SDG 3. Kuhakikisha na kuendeleza maisha na afya bora kwa wote, tukiafiki uwekezaji katika sekta bora ya afya, ni muhimu kuhakikisha kila mtu anapata huduma za kimsingi za afya bila kuzingatia eneo analotoka au hali yake ya kiuchumi. Tukitambua 80% hutegemea huduma ya afya ya umma, ilhali kuna hospitali 2 pekee za rufaa nchini, ambazo ni hospitali ya kitaifa ya Kenyatta iliyoko hapa Nairobi na hospitali ya rufaa na mafunzo ya Moi huko Eldoret. Tukizingatia kifungu cha 25 kikiambatanishwa na mpangilio wa kwanza wa sheria ya afya ya mwaka 2017, kinasema kuwa kutakuwa na hospitali ya kitaifa ya rufaa katika kila gatuzi, yaani level 6, na bunge hili linahimiza serikali kuharakisha kuwepo kwa hospitali ya rufaa ya kitaifa katika kaunti ya Mombasa, ilhali kufanikisha huduma zote za afya zinazohitajika eneo hilo zitumiazo teknolojia pevu na wataalamu wa hali ya juu, pamoja na kutoa mafunzo kwa wahudumu wa afya kabla na baada ya kuhitimu. Shukran, Bwana Spika.
No, there's nothing out of order. If you didn't follow the motion, you cannot now start saying that there's something out of order. Remember, the language of the House is either English or Swahili. So the Honorable Mohammed Ali is quite within the rules and within his rights. So maybe you should come here tomorrow early in the morning at 9:30 when he is moving the motion, so that those of you who may wish to also learn a little more Kiswahili can follow from what you will be saying. And from time to time, you can get your colleagues who will only contribute in English to tell you what you will be saying. Hoja ni hakuna kitu ambacho nidhamu imepotosha. I mean, honestly, you cannot claim that there's anything out of order. There's nothing. The motion is not moved. This is notice of motion. You know, now I can see you have not read your standing orders. At this point, there is nothing that is to be contributed to. This chance goes to the member for Uguja, the chair of Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Wandai.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on accounts of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, National Lands Commission, the National Assembly, and the Parliamentary Service Commission for the year 2015-2016. Thank you.
Very well. The Chair, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Honorable Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs on the vetting of the nominee for the appointment as the Solicitor General laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, March 13th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 9, subsection 1, in the Office of the Attorney General Act 2012, approves the appointment of Mr. Kennedy Nyabuti Ogeto to the office of the Solicitor General. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Fatuma Gedi, Vice Chair, Delegated Legislation.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Committee on the Delegated Legislation on the National Construction Authority Amendment Regulation 2017, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 13, 2018, and pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 2010 4B, annuls in entirety these said regulations. Thank you.
And I may wish to draw the attention of the House that some of these reports may get some priority in getting debated and adopted. So in the course of this week, because we need to also give effect to what committees are make recommendations about. A member for Muranga. No, sorry, next order.
Order number 7. Statements.
Honorable Sabina Chege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Orders number 52H and the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017, I rise to raise a matter of privilege relating to privacy and security of members of this august House. Honorable Speaker, several colleagues and I, both male and female, have over the past few weeks fallen victim to a fraud scam through con individuals. The said individuals have been registering mobile phone numbers in our names, and thereafter using those numbers to solicit for funds from unsuspecting members, and also to write other suspicious messages. The con individuals have mainly been targeting members who are either believed or those with fundraising projects to solicit funds, whereby the individuals send text messages to members alleging that they are in an urgent need of funds or in a situation that requires funds. The mobile used are usually registered under the victims' names. The targeted members are not able to raise any suspicion, and in the spirit of supporting a colleague, they will oblige and send the money as requested. Honorable Speaker, the matter does not just raise the question of privilege in this House, it is fraud and also touches on the privacy and the security of members. It therefore requires urgent attention, and Honorable Speaker, on March 3rd, 2018, I reported a matter to Parliament Police Station under occurrence book number 270503-2018, and Honorable Speaker, regrettably, not much has happened since then in terms of investigation, and though one of the individuals is well known, he is yet to be apprehended. Honorable Speaker, I therefore, through you, wish to make the following requests. One, that the Inspector General of Police ensures that investigations on this matter are expedited with immediate effect. Two, that the relevant mobile service providers, who have also reported to them, should answer questions regarding registration of cell phone numbers without genuine identification cards and possibility of fraudsters using other people's documentation to register mobile phones. And three, that all other institutions involved in this scam, including banks where accounts have been opened, have been used to carry out the scam, are located and should also cooperate to give information. And four, Honorable Speaker, that the civil society organizations that have provided members' contacts on websites should exercise caution while doing so. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This is member for Tongaren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it's a very good thing what the member for Muranga has done, because many members here, including myself, have gone through similar incidents. In fact, I also had occasion to report to our police station here, to the CID people, and Mr. Speaker, I'm sad to report that they hardly took any action. Because if it's Facebook, there are parody accounts, those ones can always be deleted by our teams. But when it comes to these fake people using fake phone numbers, purporting to be ourselves, it's more difficult. In fact, Mr. Speaker, eventually the people who gave me help were the Safaricom people who managed to clear off some of those accounts. But the way, now that the Honorable Sabina Chege raises this matter, to me it appears to be a well-coordinated kind of syndicate of fraud. And I'm sorry to say, by the action of the CID, after I reported, I got a feeling that they were complicit in the scam, because they did nothing about it. In fact, I reported here and even reported to the one in my constituency. And one of them just cheekily told me that seems to be coming from Kodiaga prison. So if it's coming from Kodiaga prison, why don't they go there and get hold of these people? So, Mr. Speaker, I got a feeling that this is a very well-coordinated crime syndicate, and something needs to be done. So the matter Sabina Chege has raised is so critical that I think it will be very good and help most of us members if the Inspector General got wind of this matter and the head of CID, so that they take special precautions to get rid of this syndicate before it harms. If they can actually dare do that to members of parliament, then what do they do to the ordinary mwananchi? Mr. Speaker, I think it's a very important matter that she has raised. Thank you.
Leader of Majority Party.
Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter. For the last 2 years, I have been a victim of a gentleman called Nyakundi. So, and I have his telephone number. He keeps on opening proxy accounts with my photo, Facebook, and says that I am offering jobs, I am distributing motorcycles, and asking people that for the logbook and facilitation fee of 2,000. Speaker, that has been going on. I have even formally complained to Facebook, I've complained to Twitter. His accounts are being brought down every day, and he keeps on opening. But Mr. Speaker, I have reported this to the cybercrime unit of the CID. So this thing, Mr. Speaker, these people, and they're around, they are known. They have got telephone numbers. And if you pick, one night, Mr. Speaker, I called, and he picked, and he told me, send the money through this, myself. So what's happening is real. And secondly, if you give Honorable Ichungwa, he'll tell you, there is also, Mr. Speaker, a lady who has the telephone number of all the male members of parliament. In the 11th parliament and in this 12th parliament. And what she does, the Speaker, she posts all the most obscene photos and sent to members of parliament. And the question that I have asked, Mr. Speaker, is how did this person manage to get the telephone numbers of all the male? I am sure the female must also have another victim. Yes. I am not sure, but I'm sure even our women colleagues will speak for themselves. But let me speak for. I am sure my colleagues will agree with me. And I am told she lives somewhere in Dandora. Speaker, it's very, very ugly. She sends very obscene, dirty. And we are ready to if you allow us, to give the number and even ask to write a statement with the police. Speaker, we are leaders. And we are waiting for the cybercrime bill, Mr. Speaker, to deal with these characters. Because I think the cybercrime bill is going to solve a lot of problems. That people can send you anything. So, Mr. Speaker, I think what Honorable Sabina Chege has raised is a matter of great concern. It's about our privilege. And the men and women who are posted to the Parliament police station, and both from the DCI and that. Speaker, they must help us trace these people, particularly this lady. And then There's a good gentleman called Kemboi. I am sure many people know him. But Kemboi sends very good messages. And he has also all the numbers of the members of parliament. Kemboi will send you all good morning, good messages. He'll pray for you. But in 6 months, he will ask you, today things are not very good. Can you send something little? So, Mr. Speaker, I think but Kemboi is a very good guy, because if he's praying for us, I think Kemboi deserves you people. Kemboi is a man who should, when he prays for you, you must pay some sadaqah. But Mr. Speaker, we are a victim of a lady. And you know, one day, Mr. Speaker, how I realized every male member is a victim. We were 10 of us. An honorable member for Kigumo, Honorable Jamlek, told me, do you receive such things? I told him, my friend, it's the same. And then all of us, the 10 of us, they say, this is. The other day, Mr. Speaker, she started, the deputy speaker told me I'm also a victim, the Honorable Cheboy. So I think the police station in Bunge, Mr. Speaker, we don't need to discuss this, but it's about our privilege. But colleagues, please, for the sake of our nation, let us spend more time. We'll introduce the cybercrime bill next week for second reading. Let's contribute, and at the committee of the whole house, let us make sure we put the relevant laws to protect privacy, to protect our national security, to protect what goes on within the usage of technology, handsets, computers, and all that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Musimba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I just want to echo that this is indeed a very, very serious and grave issue. Because, and the way we are looking at it, even, and it's a good thing it's been alluded to earlier, the cyber crimes bill, indeed, is, in its own formation, is shallow. Because the issues of cyberspace transcend boundaries. So there's a possibility that some of this hacking could take place from places like Lithuania, Yugoslavia, Russia. So what do you do about it? That's why it is important as we are ventilating, and it's a very good thing that Honorable Sabina Chege brought this thing up, because we need to take time. This particular bill can't be under the ICT docket. It has to be firmly under the security apparatus, which is something I've ventilated to you, Mr. Speaker, and ably it was guided by the clerk's office on what to do, and we are still in that consultative stage. But I think it is high time we do this, because I think everybody is hit, not within here, but without. The day you wake up and you find that your own bank accounts don't belong to you, that you have debts which you can't be able to explain, then you'll know the veracity of this. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, with your wise guidance, I think this is something we need to tread on carefully and actually reconsider the placement of the bill as we move on. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Although, of course, the bill has been published and is awaiting second reading, I think, therefore, I've seen your letter about the contents of the bill, but I think the essence of having the bill in public participation is to be able to improve or remove any inadequacies that may be innate or atrocious provisions, so that at least by the time it becomes law, it contains as much of the issues that you have just raised, Honorable Musimba, so that if we don't pass a law which then does not help the country, thinking that we did the very best to ourselves. So I would really request that you provide your knowledge in that area to the committee, and if possible, if you have other people who can even enrich it more, please avail them to the committee so that you enrich the bill. Honorable Amalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I thought I'm the only one who is suffering in silence. Mr. Speaker, this thing has become serious. In fact, it's almost breaking people's families, Mr. Speaker. That particular person, Mr. Speaker, who has been sending those funny messages, pictures on phone. Mr. Speaker, one time I was seated, I didn't know what it was, and I tried to open. Mr. Speaker, for about 2-3 days, it was very difficult to have communication in my house. And Mr. Speaker, last time when this incident happened, I happened to have been with the former MP, Regina Ndambuki. And for majority leader, it's not just for male. In fact, Honorable Regina Ndambuki's phone, when she opened, I was with her, she almost went under the seat, Mr. Speaker. Because this person, how he gets these numbers, Mr. Speaker, I do not understand. It is something which has been good. Speaker, we should move with speed. And even that friend Kemboi, I wonder whether he's a Kemboi. Because I've been getting those messages of encouragement, Mr. Speaker. At times when you are low, Kemboi will always pray for you. Yes. And he requested for a small sadaka, Mr. Speaker. At one time I was tempted. Then I was like, is he a true person or an imposter, Mr. Speaker? So we've been suffering in silence. I'm not sure whether, Mr. Speaker, you've also been receiving similar messages, because you're also a member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, like in my constituency, they've conned my principles, Mr. Speaker. When you go to their profile, they've put my picture, Mr. Speaker. Even today, when I speak like this, they get it somewhere and they send it immediately to fool the people that I'm the owner. They've conned my principal schools, these issues of the project of motorbikes. They've conned my people, Mr. Speaker, 70,000 each. And these were poor people. They thought I'm distributing those motorbikes, and they're saying, please send 70,000 for purposes of clearance from the port. They've also conned principals that I'm providing iron sheets, so send transport of 30,000. It is something which has been going on, Mr. Speaker. I'm very sorry, Honorable Sabina. I'm hoping your husband did not bring issues, if at all he saw that, because it's actually a big, big problem. We should even form a committee, a task force committee, Mr. Speaker, so that you can move with speed, and if these people, wherever they are, they can get apprehended, Mr. Speaker, and action can be taken. And if there's someone in this parliament, Mr. Speaker, who has been giving out these numbers, because there must be somewhere, because we give our contacts, Mr. Speaker. These people have our telephone numbers. They send us funny things, Mr. Speaker, and we are suffering in silence. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's the leader of my minority party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think a lot has been said, and it appears we are all victims of these fraudsters. Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention maybe two other issues. Number one, how is it possible that numbers of close to 400 and so members, if you add the Senate, gets known by one person out there? I think there was a mistake which occurred somewhere, and I want to say this because I can see our clerk is here. I think when we gave out our numbers, Mr. Speaker, and I have information about this because in the 11th Parliament, I gave out my number and my wife's number just in case you don't get me, because me and my wife is one and the same thing. I read somewhere in the Bible that what God has put together, no one should separate, including phones. And my wife has been the biggest victim of those photos of that lady, Mr. Speaker. And so I'm very clear in my mind that these numbers were given out when we gave our numbers to be contacted. I don't know whether it has happened again in this 12th Parliament, because in the 11th Parliament, I think either the numbers were put in the internet somewhere and everybody accessed them. Because we have been victims because of this. But, Mr. Speaker, something else that I think is worrying me is two things. Number one is how is it that our investigative department, the department doing investigation, is not able to arrest many of these people? In fact, the problem is not even confined to these obscene photos and bad messages. We can live with that. I mean, your wife and your husband should be reasonable enough to appreciate that if these are your true girlfriends, that they would not behave that way. Or boyfriends, that they would not behave that way. But more importantly, there are people who are conned across the country using our names. To me, that is where the biggest problem is, and it is not just confined to us. It also includes even other Kenyans, prominent Kenyans, even in whichever way. So there is need for the CID department to be awake. That scares me, because if such a simple crime, no one can trace the perpetrators, then how sure am I that I'm safe from terrorists who are more advanced in the way they operate. So that is one thing that worries me. But the final one is a challenge to us as policymakers, that the way these people operate, it appears to me that they are very intelligent people. So it means that we have educated some people who don't have jobs in this country. And they are very innovative and creative, very sharp, intelligent minds. When you educate people, they become intelligent and sharp, and you don't give them jobs, they are idle, then they will take to this kind of crime. Therefore, I think as policymakers, and that is where I support the idea of working around agenda items for this country that would create more job opportunities to our young people so that they are able to find something useful with their lives. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I also want to express, I just also wanted to indicate that I've been a victim, and I'm sure if you asked anyone who has not been a victim to stand, probably no one would stand in this August House, Mr. Speaker. That is how expansive and how extensive this issue is, and so serious. And by the way, lastly, Mr. Speaker, I think the reason why, and I thank you for allowing us to ventilate this matter, people should not look at this matter as petty. Sometimes I see the media analyzing what we discuss. I am sure someone is sitting somewhere thinking that we are discussing petty issues. This is not petty. I think we are speaking to Kenyans out there that there are fraudsters who would use MPs' names, who would use other people's names. So before you are conned, be aware that this is happening. So I think allowing us to ventilate it should send a message to Kenyans who are watching us now or who are listening to us as we speak, that these fraudsters, it is real. So many people have lost money in my constituency. Some even go to principals of schools telling them the checks are ready. They call them that I have the check ready for your school from CDF, and I just need transport to bring it to you. And they send money. By the way, I don't understand how Kenyans are nowadays very vulnerable. And they send money to such fraudsters and later regret it. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Obviously, this is not, nobody can trivialize this. I think anybody attempting to do so would be out of their minds. But of course, it's also fair to appreciate that innovators, who could be, some of whom could be very crooked, are always ahead of policymakers and regulators. So, and that's why I think I agree with the Honorable Patrick Musimba that we need, as we discuss that cyber crimes bill, to really go out of our way to see what is available out there in the field, in the technology world, because the matter is serious. Member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the minority leader has mentioned, many of us have been victims of these very bad fraudsters. Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, a number of people have lost a lot of money to fraudsters pretending to be the governor for Nairobi, the Honorable Mike Sonko. And the same schemes of motorbikes being given out, car washing machines being given out. But more instructively, Mr. Speaker, is an issue that a number of members have spoken to. The ineptness of the police, and especially the CID department when these issues are reported to them. And it's not just such issues that they may consider to be trivial maybe in their opinion, but also in very serious crimes. Mr. Speaker, a week or 2 weeks ago, a lady who hails from Buruburu reported a case of a car being stolen in Thika, and inside the car was a phone that whoever stole the car continued using that phone for a whole 2 weeks. The case is reported, the CID have the number, they can call the number, they have the ability and the capacity to trace this person and be able to even trace the car. But simply the police were inept. And Mr. Speaker, I'm asking that because it is not enough to say this is a matter of just privilege and the security of members of parliament. It is a matter that is of concern to Kenyans at large. And therefore, it is not enough to just speak about it here, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to ask if you find it in your wisdom, Mr. Speaker, fair or just that the committee in charge of security do summon the director CID and the IG to come and talk to this House through the committee, why particularly the Department of CID has become so inept in investigating. The Honorable Sabina, when she went to report that matter at Parliament Police Station, Mr. Speaker, I was seated with a number of lady members of Parliament at the new members' lounge at Java, and across the road, Mr. Speaker. And all the ladies were complaining about this one young man who is well known and even well known to the police. In fact, one of the members pointed out to a gentleman who was seated in the restaurant and said, it looks like he's the one. When we spoke to Honorable Sabina, she was actually making a report at the CID offices. And they were told, but nobody bothered to do anything, Mr. Speaker. Talk of other cybercrime issues, Twitter, Facebook, Mr. Speaker. I have been a victim to an extent that at one point, the Honorable Raphael Wanjala, when we were speaking about the number of wives, actually had issues with me over something that had been posted by a Twitter account that I did not own, a parody account. The Honorable Otiende Amolo, we have had an altercation with him on national TV because of issues posted by parody accounts on Twitter. Only last week I noticed again there was another parody account on Facebook. Therefore, matters that we will deal with on the cybercrime bill, Mr. Speaker, those are issues that at a policy level we can deal with. But matters to do with ineptness within our police force, more so CID, that is a matter again that we should not wait for any policy. It is an excuse, what the Honorable Amalwa says, that the police will tell you we cannot do anything without this law. Where Kenyans are being defrauded, the police cannot claim they cannot do anything. There are laws within the penal code that they can use to charge some of these people. But they simply don't do it, Mr. Speaker, either because they are co-conspirators with them or they are collecting these things. What I think is Honorable Mbadi who said that the PSC chair, that he told this person, it was actually Honorable Eseli, this person is calling you from Kondiaga prison. If you know that person is Kondiaga prison or Kamiti prison, go and arrest them. That is why Kenyans are paying you to do that work and get to those people in prison and out of prison who are defrauding Kenyans. Otherwise, we have made crime look so ordinary that even the minority leader can tell us these are young Kenyans who are being ingenious. Young Kenyans who are ingenious should be ingenious in inventing things that will make them earn an income, but not by defrauding other Kenyans who are easily as poor as they are. Therefore, let us not create excuses, Mr. Speaker, for crime. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me also to, in a special way, welcome Kikuyu Township Primary School, the school I went to for my primary school studies, who are in the gallery, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yeah. Honourable members, I thought, you know, this matter was raised under standing order number 52H as a matter of privilege. And that's why I've allowed comments, because I think at some point I may have to give some direction as to what should happen. And because the member never sought the establishment or setting up of a House committee to deal with the matter, we may not really discuss it so much. But the member for Suna East, you have indicated.
Mr. Speaker, I have been a victim. Honorable Chungwe, I have even the pictures in my phone, Mr. Speaker. And if I share with you here openly those pictures, Mr. Speaker, those are pictures that you cannot look at them, Mr. Speaker. Some of them are showing very dangerous parts of human body, Mr. Speaker, that you cannot see them with your naked eyes, Mr. Speaker. You need some goggles, Mr. Speaker, to look at them, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I need to table those pictures, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I listened to my deputy, the way he was speaking, the anguish on his face, Mr. Speaker, I felt sorry for him, Mr. Speaker. You know, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, you're on suspicious list at home, and certain messages like those ones come to him, Mr. Speaker. Then it confirms the suspicion, Mr. Speaker, that people have on him, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, it is a very painful experience to go through. Then, Mr. Speaker, a situation arises where you are at home and you give a child your phone to play with, Mr. Speaker, your son, to play games, to play certain other things with your phone, Mr. Speaker. And that message just comes in, ting, ting, Mr. Speaker. And it is showing all kinds of things, Mr. Speaker. Things which have never been seen openly, unless in darkness. Things that are only seen, Mr. Speaker, in darkness, Mr. Speaker. Even people switch off the lights, Mr. Speaker, when they went to see those things. Mr. Speaker, this is a very dangerous thing, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the biggest threat the world, Mr. Speaker, the biggest threat the world and the country is facing, Mr. Speaker, is cybercrime, Mr. Speaker. People have lost money. People even have lost their lives, Mr. Speaker. People are opening, in this country now, everybody's coming, Facebook, Twitter. That man who started Facebook, what is his name? The other day, last year, I saw him eating ugali and fish with the Minister for ICT. Because they have 6 million, 10 million accounts, Mr. Speaker. But out of those 10 million, 5 million accounts, Mr. Speaker, are fake. They are just opened to abuse people, intimidate people, malign people, and even destroy political careers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is only our ladies who used to complain about cyberbullying, Mr. Speaker. But now it is us, the men. We thought we were strong enough to withstand that kind of bullying, Mr. Speaker. But I have come to confirm that if you come under the attack for a week only, Mr. Speaker, you can run out of this country, Mr. Speaker. If these keyboard warriors come for you, Mr. Speaker, for 1 week only, Mr. Speaker, you can go under the water, Mr. Speaker. They can chase you out of town, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, these characters who have taken numbers, Mr. Speaker, it is true there is a list that is generated every time when we come to Parliament, Mr. Speaker. The only mistake my minority leader has done is put his wife's number there, Mr. Speaker. It was a big mistake, Mr. Speaker. You don't put your wife's number on the list, Mr. Speaker. They can harass her very badly. I'm very sorry for him, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, that is the list they pick from Parliament. Now she has resisted. She has moved from that number. It is good resistance came now, even though it is now going slow, Mr. Speaker. And some people who cannot continue with it want to continue with it, Mr. Speaker. We are the champions of resistance, Mr. Speaker. And once we have cooled it down, keep quiet and listen to the owners so that they can tell you how to move it tomorrow. But anyway, that is beside the point, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, now they pick the list from Parliament. They use those numbers, Mr. Speaker. And that list of members' names and numbers, Mr. Speaker, belongs to Parliament only. It's a confidential document, Mr. Speaker, that is supposed to be used only by parliamentary staff and for the work of committees and how you can be reached. It's not for public domain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this cybercrime bill that is coming up is going to be of very much important to this country more than any other bill, Mr. Speaker. It is going to help this country more than any other law that has been passed in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the police, you know the police force of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, 60% of them were employed when mobile phones were not existing. 60% of them were employed in the 60s, 80s, and you know in Kenya, if you join the civil servant, you never retire. You just increase your years because the year begins when you went to standard 1, not when you were born. So you'll see an old man who's a police officer, and he's carrying telephones which don't have any knowledge of Facebook, smartphones, and when you tell him I've been bullied through a smartphone, he's wondering, what is a smartphone? When did you buy it? The first question he'll ask you when you report in the police station, when did smartphones come to Kenya first? Can you tell us? So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks,
member for Baringo County. But before you say, it's fair to also state that the staff of Parliament are always under instructions never to disclose the information of members that is given. It's only for official purposes. But you may wish to know that there are some certain organizations that have written about members here. You may wish to find out how they get some of the information about members that they have used. Honorable Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is a very unfortunate situation. Even when I'm seated here, the member next to me on my left is already receiving some things here and hiding the phone from me. And I want to say, the first lady who spoke, the Honorable Sabina, she spoke at this office. We want to know our investigative department, that is specifically CID, is lacking enough capacity to investigate criminals, particularly cybercrime in this country, because we cannot continue like this. Some people are losing their jobs, especially the political career, like somebody has said, a member said. So one person talking on behalf of the rest of the members of this House and a member of the Power and Privileges Committee, that if the members in this House cannot, who has the power and the privileges given unto them by the Power and Privileges Act 2017, are not immune to these abuses, then what happens to the members of the public? So it is sad, it is obscene. The one that one time exposed Cicely, the former MP for Bomet, Cicely Ngetich, is all over, seducing all men in this house, all women. So all the men are saying they are being seduced, and all the women in the house are being seduced. So even how, I wonder even how some of the personal assassinative character messages go to even papers like the Nairobian. When we talk of Nairobian, is Nairobian allowed to be posting anything about anybody anytime? Because I was telling a member this afternoon, you should fear even buying.
Oh no, members, I think, honestly, no, it's not debate. It's not debate. And intended to give the member for Kimilili a chance to speak for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy that this matter is being discussed here. But I'm worried that we are discussing this matter amongst our own selves. And I think it will only be, you all need to complement this discussion by either ordering that the Inspector General of Police or the Director of CID appears before a parliamentary committee to actually tell us what efforts the police have put in place to ensure that all this madness stops. Because today, Mr. Speaker, if a poor man steals even 100 shillings with an operating mobile phone, I'm sure the police will arrest that person within the shortest time possible. So it is that these criminals are paying insurance premium to the police officers so that the police can protect them. Because I'm sure somebody, if a member of parliament reports a matter with the CID, that a particular criminal is swindling people money, pretending to be that particular member, and the same number, the same person continues to communicate, continue to send WhatsApp messages. I think if the police are serious, they cannot take too much time arresting these people, Mr. Speaker. And I think what we should do as a House is that to order that those who are in charge of investigation of these matters appears before a committee of Parliament so that they know that this matter is serious, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, we will be discussing this matter today, we discuss this matter tomorrow, but this criminal gang still lives, operates, changes tactics, and continue to flee, to fraud very many Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And a member for Kiambu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank member for Muranga for bringing this issue, which has really bugged so many people, and so many of them have not had the courage to bring it out. And I know many members have been affected by this. I don't want to repeat what members have said. I don't want to repeat experiences which members have gone through and which Kenyans have gone through. If we were to do that, the government would consider opening a ministry of con and fraudsters because the cases are too many. But as concerns members, Mr. Speaker, there is an organization called Mzalendo.com, and it's doing a good job. It collects the information from Parliament, how many members have spoken, what they have contributed about. But Mzalendo.com has gone ahead and given private information about members, and thus putting lives of members in danger. Mzalendo, if they would know, they would even pinpoint where your house is, and this would be very, very dangerous. Mr. Speaker, as other members have said, I think it is very, very important that the telephone service providers should be called to this house to explain how Constars register telephone numbers with members' names, which are causing confusion. The police commissioner and the DCI should be called into this house to explain why steps are not being followed. And as this happens, we should also call Mzalendo.com so that they should come here and explain where they get this private information about members. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, many of the consters, the con artists, and many of the cases that have been reported, not only in this House, Mr. Speaker, but out there, where members of public have been losing a lot of money, where their lives have been threatened. Many of those incidents have been reported to be coming from Kamete Prison, from Kodiaga, or from wherever else. And this is in public domain. Everybody knows this. Even when they do ransacking in prison, they get so many telephones out there. My question is, why is it so difficult for the prison department to block such that they cannot use telephone numbers, they cannot use telephone within prisons, so that they can reduce this menace, because it's affecting so many people, out there. Mr. Speaker, if we call these people to this House, I am sure we shall have done so much to curb this problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honourable members, we will end that debate at that point. And I'll give the following orders. That this matter, being a matter touching on privilege, and a matter that goes to issues of security of members, and indeed many Kenyans out there, cannot be taken lightly. Therefore, I refer this issue or this matter to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, who should, within 7 days, invite the Inspector General of Police, the Director of Criminal Investigations, the Director General Communications Authority of Kenya, and the service providers.
Mr. Speaker, I want just to urge chairs that they should be taking seriously the statement from the Leader of Majority on Thursday evenings, because it is for something. It is meant to indicate those bills that we have approved as a House Business Committee, so that they prepare for the next week's sittings. So that, and there were advantage this time that at least we had 1 week recess, although we were away, but they should at least these committees which had bills lined up for debate today should have finalized their report. Mr. Speaker, that's what I wanted to urge, that the committees take seriously the statement by the Leader of Majority. Sometimes we think it is just a ritual. People don't even listen. So I think there is need for these committees to take interest in that statement.
You're absolutely right. But the only reason that I have not reprimanded any particular committee is because of course, the extraordinary circumstances that between Monday of last week and Thursday, all members were not able, the committees could not have been able to sit. And returning back from Mombasa to Nairobi, perhaps they might not have had sufficient time to be able to sit and consider most of their reports, so be able to give us an update. That's the reason why I have, in fairness, not reprimanded any particular committee. But I'm taking the liberty to allow the Honorable Limo to lay the report and give notice and lead the debate. But the Honorable Musimba, you also have a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted, I think it's a bit of housekeeping. I wanted some direction from you. I think it's the way we introduce the bills in the House. You know, they come marked in the name of the Leader of Majority. But as we know he's the one who's leading the majority side, I think bills should come and be introduced by the individual chairman of the particular committees, so that you have good order and good following. Because I think the Leader of Majority, though knowledgeable, cannot be knowledgeable in a wide array of things. So I think, Mr. Speaker, I would be inviting you to actually consider this for good order, because the committees indeed go and sit and ventilate upon hours on hours on particular aspects. So when from time to time he's just reading through notes, he might not grasp what needs to be emphasized, what is not new, and so that we have good order as we move forward. I ask for your guidance in this. Thank you, Speaker.
Well, it's not for me to guide because I think since 2013, at the very first post-election conference, we did get a brief that the executive introduces bills in a presidential system into the House on request through any member. And that advice, I think, it was given to, I thought everybody was present, but of course, you see, the executive is at liberty. They are the ones that will introduce most of the bills. But of course, individual committees, should they come up with any legislative proposal, would obviously be in their names. But that is a practice. So I believe you could approach the leader of majority and the majority whip and try to share that the proposal you have in mind, Honorable Musimba. Honorable Limo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 13, 2018. Report of the Committee on Finance and National Planning on the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill number 3 of 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Has he given notice? You may proceed, Honorable Limo. I already approved the report. Who? Is it Honorable Ashali wants to is moving? Okay, very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the statute law miscellaneous amendments law number 3, bill number 2017 of 2017, National Assembly bills number 44 of 2017 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, maybe I want to take this opportunity to indulge the new members because this is the first time bill of this case. Kotu urge Dr. Pius Wanjala, that's the pharmaceutical regulatory specialist, advocate of the High Court of Kenya and the Senior Deputy Director of National Quality Control Laboratory, that is MOH, I, Sayaton Investment Management Limited, that is for National Environmental Tribunal, J, Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, amendment of the Clinical Officers and Training, Registration and Licensing Act 1988, number 9 of 1988. K, Mr. Okia Omtata Okoit for Law Society of Kenya versus the Attorney General, constitutional petition number 3 of 2016. Then there is L, Mr. Ernest Mkuku Murio, Certified Public Accountant. M, Mr. James Wathiko, Pharmacy and Poisons Board. N, Senator Kenneth Lusaka, MP. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether it's the same Lusaka, because this is different, completely different. Into bracket concerns, county, government. Mr. Speaker, allow me to counter check this because the facts as enumerated here do not add up. Then Mr. Sospita Otuya Katiech of Pharmacy and Practitioners Bill of 2014. P, Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Q, the Kenya Coalition for Wildlife Conservation and Management, that is the Environmental Management Coordination Act of 1999. Association. W, Federation of Kenya Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. And X, Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice. Honorable Speaker, the statute law, this is the Miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2017, is a simple and straightforward bill, and it seeks to make minor amendments to the various acts, including the Pensions Act, Cap 189, the Pharmacy and Poisons Act, Cap 244, the Environmental Management and Coordination Act, number 8 of 1999, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act, number 10 of 2011, the Statutory Instruments Act, number 23 of 2013, and Occupational Therapists Training, Registration and Licensing Act, number 31 of 2017. Honorable Speaker, permit me to now to expound on the specific amendments that the bill is proposing to introduce. Firstly, Honorable Speaker, the bill proposes to amend Section 2 of the Pensions Act by inserting the definition of the term minister to mean the same as the term cabinet secretary. This is in line with the Constitution, which uses the word cabinet secretary and not minister. Further, the bill amends Section 5, Subarticle 3 of the same Act in order to increase the number of years that an officer must complete in order to qualify for unpensionable benefits from 5 years to 10 years. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the bill proposes to amend the Pharmacy and Poisons Act so as to provide for a chief executive officer of the Pharmacy and Pensions Board, who shall be competitively recruited and appointed upon terms and conditions of service as shall be determined by the board. Honorable Speaker, moving on, the bill further proposes to amend the Environmental and Management and Coordination Act in order to provide for the election of chairperson and vice chairperson of the National Environmental Tribunal established under Section 125 of the Act from amongst the 3 lawyers nominated to the tribunal. The 3 lawyers are the chairperson nominated by the Judicial Service Commission, and advocate of the Environment and Land Court of Kenya nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, and a lawyer with professional qualifications in environmental law appointed by the Cabinet Secretary for Environment. Further, the bill clarifies on the power of the tribunal to issue orders of stay of proceedings maintaining the status quo in regard to any matter or activity which is the subject of appeal before the tribunal until it is heard and determined. Honorable Speaker, looking at the bill, you will also observe that the bill seeks to amend the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act in order to provide for the commissioners of SRC to serve on a full-time basis. And I want to ask the members to be keen on this amendment because I'm sure you've been victims of this commission, and therefore you need to be very keen on whether you would want them to be on full-time basis. Indeed, as you are aware, SRC plays a very critical role in ensuring that the public wage bill is fiscally sustainable so as to promote economic development of this nation in line with its mandate as espoused and provided for in Article 230 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the bill also proposes to amend the Statutory Instruments Act in order to align the Act with Article 93 of the Constitution, which establishes the two houses of Parliament. In this regard, Honorable Speaker, the bill therefore amends Section 11 of the Act to allow for the tabling of statutory instruments to the relevant House of Parliament. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the bill proposes to amend the occupational therapists.
Someone leaves service, that person gets his or her pension. I think this is something that we must reject, that we retain it at 5 years and ask the pensions department to double their effort in ensuring that they manage our funds properly, so that whatever is accrued to any Kenyan leaving service anytime, that Kenyan should access the pension. Mr. Speaker, I also want to make a comment on the Environmental Management and Coordination Act, where the appointment of the chair is now being removed from the Judicial Service Commission, the chair of the tribunal. The chair of the tribunal in the current act is being appointed by the Judicial Service Commission, and that responsibility is being taken away and being given to the president. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge caution here. The tribunal is almost like, actually, tribunals transact business that is like a court process. Actually, tribunal is part of a court process. And when a chair of a tribunal is actually like a judge, is the one presiding over the case together with other members of the tribunal. I know there is that space in law, and the Honorable Shamala, I'm sure, is very much more aware of this than I do, that we have membership of the tribunal, some who are not lawyers. But coming to the chairman must be a lawyer. But giving this responsibility to President, Madam Speaker, I think is not right. We need to still allow the Judicial Service Commission to continue appointing chair of the tribunal because it is a judicial process that we have to look at the competence. And the Judicial Service Commission has the capacity and more competence to be able to determine who qualifies really to be a judge or to exercise powers over a judge, so to speak. Madam Speaker, on the issue of Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, and I'm not contributing to this because of probably the issues that we have had with SRC, I want to be very objective and say that making this commission permanent, to me, there is no justification. First, we have been pushing as a house and as a people in this country that we give more capacity to secretariats of commissions and reduce what I would call interference with the day-to-day running of activities of commissions by the commissioners. And actually, we have been complaining. There was a time I brought a question in this house, I think in the 10th Parliament, and which led to some committee investigation to just confirm how much we are spending on these commissions. And the results were shocking, Madam Speaker, and this House was in agreement that we should try as much as possible to make our commissions part-time, that even those which are full-time, which have full-time commissioners, we should relook at them and see if it is really important to have full-time commissioners in those commissions. Because the problems that you see around between the commissions and the secretariat is because the commissions are now, because they have too much time at their disposal, they don't know what to do with that time, and they are full-time, they end up now interfering with the operations and activities of the secretariat. So, Madam Speaker, to me, we cannot say one thing and then the following day we do the opposite. I don't know the rationale. I was listening to the seconder, and both the mover and the seconder of the motion, and I got convinced that they were even themselves not convinced that that the membership of SRC should serve on full-time basis. I think someone mischievously just wanted some job to be created to people and make them permanent. If you ask me, it is not necessary to have members of this commission. Just those statutory instruments that affect the counties would be taken to the Senate. But this is a very, very hot topic, Madam Speaker, I must admit. Many a times when you objectively express yourself on issues that should not go to the Senate, a lot of times the other house feels that probably we are fighting the existence of the other house, which I think members of this house will agree that the existence of the other house is critical in this country and we just need to respect it. But we need to define whether is it not a waste of parliamentary time and delay when everything has to be taken to both houses, when the Constitution clearly defines that the Senate needs just to deal with matters, functions that are actually touching on county governments, county functions, and those are clearly defined in the Constitution. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Minority. You support. Next on my request list is a member for Emuhaya. The Honorable Milemba Omboko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas this is a good bill in terms of, as explained by the movers, that it cleans up the acts and realigns them with the Constitution. There are a few things that I think I would wish to make emphasis in terms of whether they should go the way they are or not. The first one is we need to take cognizance of the fact that tribunals may not have the full authority of the court system. And if we just move and allow a tribunal to be allowed to give stay orders are sometimes very punitive and very, very, very punchy to the people who they affect. So that is one area which I think, Madam Speaker, should be looked at into properly so that we don't end up giving tribunals which traditionally should be having quasi-powers of judicial system to relieve those powers from the courts to the tribunals. Number two, an area which I also think, Madam Speaker, is worth making a comment is on the TVET institutions. I think I want to support the idea that the TVET institutions be empowered to actually get their students without necessarily being cajoled or monitored or managed by the universities per se. Because the area where we are now moving to is an area where we want to have a syllabus in Kenya. The new curriculum is competency-based. And with the competence-based curriculum, the TVET institutions will play a more key role and a very key role in the development of education and the general employment output that we shall have, a training of students into employment in Kenya. So that anybody who has actually provided service should be able to access his pensions without being punished in any way. Then lastly, Madam Speaker, there was the issue mentioned on KUDEA. KUDEA is a trade union that represents the workers in the hotel industries, also schools to some extent. And mainly KUDEA represents the domestic workers. And for a long time, KUDEA has been fighting to have the issues mainstreamed, especially Convention number 189. I want to believe this miscellaneous amendment also includes that, and if that be the case, then I would want to support that vividly. And lastly, Madam Speaker, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, commissioners should not serve on permanent basis, because the Salaries and Remuneration Commission only comes up to deal with issues of salaries whenever the trade unions or other agitators want salaries, after which they go mum until when another episode occurs. I think the secretariat they have is enough to sustain their work, and I will not be supporting the work, the idea that they become permanent commissioners. With those many, many comments, I would also beg to support. Thank you.
You support or you oppose?
With those very many areas which I would want to be changed, the general will of this particular bill is not bad, but those areas which I've pointed out would need to be amended. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Muaya. The Honorable Hole Sankok David.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And from the onset, let me say that I do support this statutory law miscellaneous amendment number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2017. Madam Speaker, on the Salary and Remuneration Commission Act number 10 of 2011, surely I want to offer my different opinion from the Honorable Member of Muaya, because for sure our wage bill is at around 52% as we speak now. And Madam Speaker, these commissioners need really to be in office full-time so that they can understand, instead of making some decisions that are not well informed. We really need them to be in office full-time, because at times they are being misled by the Secretariat. And we have found situations whereby their decision and their suggestion of how this country can manage its wage bill have been wounding. At times, their advice have led to problems, and what we are witnessing in the demonstrations that have been across the country demanding for increase in salaries need a commission that can sit down with commissioners being serving on full-time basis, sit down and reason with the Secretariat so that the decision, you know, when you have commissioners who only probably have 8 sittings in a whole year, probably they may not be able to give us advice on these issues related to salaries, which are affecting our country. So, Madam Speaker, I do support this bill. Madam Speaker, I will also want to take this early opportunity to congratulate the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, together with His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, for that unity talks. I know some members may not be very comfortable with it. They are claiming they were not consulted. The only consultation we need as Kenyans is peace. And when the country moves forward peacefully, we do all support. So I urge members of this House to support those unity talks. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The member for Tharaka, Honorable Murugara Kitonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the miscellaneous amendment bill, and as a member of the Delegated Legislation Committee, I'll deal with the aspect that related to statute Statutory Instruments Act, which is also proposed to be amended in certain sections. It is important to clarify that the Statutory Instruments Act is the parent act that gives power to other institutions apart from Parliament to make laws, which laws we term as subsidiary legislation or delegated legislation. It is that act which ensures that the subsidiary legislation passed is in tandem with the parent law. Otherwise, these institutions would make laws that are ultra-vires. There are several sections of the Statutory Instruments Act proposed to be amended, beginning with the one that defines the clerk of the National Assembly. In the parent act, clerk is defined as being clerk of Parliament. And to ensure that there is conformity between the Constitution and the parent act, it has become necessary to define clerk to mean the clerk of the National Assembly and not the clerk of the Senate. There is also a proposed amendment which covers the explanatory memorandum which is supposed to accompany every legislation that is brought to Parliament for consideration. As I have said, these other authorities are not Parliament, but they make laws which have to be approved by Parliament so that those laws can come into effect. And where Parliament, which is through its Committee on Delegated Legislation, fails to approve those laws, they become annulled. So the parliamentary law is either to approve or annul the laws. There is also a proposed amendment such that when we bring the memorandum, it has to contain certain aspects, which aspects will actually explain to Parliament whether those laws are ultra-vires or intra-vires, whether the mandatory requirements of the Constitution have been complied with.
You forgot to remove at the intervention, otherwise you are the next actually. Yeah, but you still an intervention, there's nothing out of order. Just remove from the intervention, you are still the first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this.
Since I had mentioned, I had called him and then you, Honorable Malo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Or you are still communicating with Honorable Wamalo?
Honorable Member, yes, carry on. Just carry on. It's your time to debate.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to support this miscellaneous amendment bill. I believe it's important so that small areas in various laws which have challenges can be streamlined. I do support it fully, especially on the areas to do with Salaries and Enumeration Commission. The thinking of the committee, I believe, is quite correct, and I do support it because Salaries and Enumeration Commission mostly perform their work through consultancy. They engage various people on various duties to ensure that the issues of salaries and benefits of state officers and other public officers are dealt with through consultancy because they may not be that specialized in the specific areas. So that proposal that they could be part-time, I believe it is okay. And I believe if they become part-time, they will allow the Secretariat to perform their professional work without much interference. Because when you have so many people who are full-time, you will be competing to perform similar roles which are not well defined. On the issue of Statutory Instrument Act, where this bill is proposing an amendment to specify which house is going to be dealing with specific regulations, I believe this is a well thought out amendment and should be supported by all of us. And I believe this will reduce the time when we are dealing with regulation, when we are approving it. This issue of having lengthy processes, of referring it to the Senate, comes to the National Assembly, that it is going to be too long, it will take too long. So if we simply refer to the relevant house, I believe that is in order. I can simply note a major shortcoming, which I thought it could be captured in this amendment on the Statutory Instrument Act. The issue of the time it takes the committee to process the regulations which is before it. Because currently it's 14 days after tabling, and we know the mischief which most of the institutions do. They table these regulations on the last day as we proceed to recess or such, so that it lapses and automatically becomes law. We need to capture it well, that it is 14 days of sitting, but I believe the committee which I sit on, the Committee on Delegated Legislation, proposes about 28 sitting days, which I believe that is quite a reasonable time for the committee to perish through these regulations, because serious laws are made under those regulations, which may not be captured in the actual acts of this House. On the Clinical Officers Training, Registration and Licensing Act of 1988, I believe what this bill is simply proposing is simply a cleanup to align the presence of the current constitution, where previously we used to refer to the minister. Now we have a cabinet secretary. That one is now being captured very well in this Miscellaneous Amendment Act. On the EMCA Act, that's Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999, the bill seeks to create a tribunal which, with specific roles which are quite clarified in this Miscellaneous Amendment Act, on even issues to do with the appointment of various of the chair and the members of that committee is well captured. The grounds on which people can make an appeal to the tribunal on issues such as unfair refusal to issue licenses, they can make an appeal. Unfair conditions of licensing, revocation of licenses, like I believe the minister recently sort of, I don't know if it was revocation of licenses for those who are harvesting trees or whatever, but at least it interfered with that business, even harvesting mature trees for the next 90 days. These things are well captured now that people can go to a tribunal and make an appeal. There are issues of even the fees which they are paying. If it's unfair, they can make an appeal on that. And if they are required to restore the environment in a certain way which they believe, which they think is punitive, they can make an appeal also to this tribunal. So I believe these amendments which are brought here will ensure that the rights of the citizens of this country are protected, that the actions of various institutions of government, such as NEMA and the larger Ministry of Environment, does not harass Kenyans unfairly without a clear process of seeking justice when these institutions step on their feet. There is also the issues of pension, that after 5 years, you can be paid your pension. In the world of teaching, most teachers get employed at the age of 45 because it takes long to get that very important recruitment letter from Teacher Service Commission. And the age of 50 is a retirement age. By law, is a retirement age. So they may be required to retire at the age of 50. And because of that 10-year rule, they may not earn their pension. Many people think that the age of 60 is the retirement age. The age of 60 is called mandatory requirement. That means when the government observes that you are not ready to move out, they kick you out of service at the age of 60. It's mandatory that you are kicked out of office if you are still there. I believe the shortcoming on this amendment is the issue of delayed pension, because it takes so long for many public servants to be paid their pension. We need to capture in law that if pension is delayed, it should start earning interest from that time it has been delayed. That one needs to be taken care of so that the people processing the pensions can fast track it so that our people don't suffer as they retire. And then the issue of a memorandum of objects in this bill, I don't know if it is very clear.
Draft some amendments to the same, Madam Speaker. And that's why I said the Committee on Environment should have subjected this to issues of public participation. Madam Speaker, the previous committee in the previous Parliament on Environment was very active, and we want to recognize the efforts of the former chair, Honorable Amin Abdallah. She was a very active chair on that committee, Madam Speaker. And the current governor of Vihiga, Dr. Tichilo. It was one of the top committees, Madam Speaker, but so far, we are not even seeing any member of the environmental committee or that chair, particularly to debate on this matter. Secondly, Madam Speaker, when these bills come here, most of the time they come in the name of the leader of majority. And we've opposed this several times because, Madam Speaker, even Honorable Ashali, when was moving on behalf, he had it difficult, Madam Speaker, to move this miscellaneous amendment because he admitted there was even a name of Honorable Kennedy Lusaka, and he even said that the two cannot add up. He has to go. So the issue is this: when bills come here, they should come in the names of the chair. We know they are coming from the executive, but the respective chairs of this committee, Madam Speaker, are the ones which are conducting public hearings. So when they come here to move, things are at their fingertips, as opposed to having a majority leader who might not be aware of how the public participation was done. We've discussed this before, and it's the highest time we must change, that when a bill is coming from the executive and is touching on environment, it is important that the chair of that environmental committee should be the one to move this bill, because he has done the public participation as the chair, he has internalized the issues. When he comes on the floor of the House, he can be able to articulate much better than the leader of majority. And this is done in many other jurisdictions, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we move on, Madam Speaker, and it has brought some issues. I remember this matter came up when on the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations, Madam Speaker. This matter came up, and because they come from the same side, and this is a person who has chaired the public participation, so he have matters at their fingertips, Madam Speaker, as opposed maybe to the leader of majority who might not have time to participate in that public participation. So this is just an issue we thought about. It has come up, so that I thought I should raise this issue. Maybe as we move on, we can be able to look into this and see how we can be able to share, because it's a spirit of teamwork. Today, many bills have been stepped down, Madam Speaker, because the respective chairs, some of them, maybe they've been sleeping on the job, or maybe they were leaving it for the majority leader. You saw it happening today. A lot of the bills have been stepped down, Madam Speaker, which are today on the order paper. Madam Speaker, as I move on, I want to mention on the SRC, the Salary and Remuneration Commission, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we cannot afford for these commissioners to be on full time, Madam Speaker. We are talking about the issue of wage bill.
Honorable Chris Wamala, there is an intervention by the nominated member, Honorable Shamala Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on a point of order. I've heard the honourable member refer to the Statute Miscellaneous Amendment Bill and state that the chairman of the Environmental Tribunal shall be appointed by the President. Actually, nothing is further from the truth.
Honorable Shamala Jennifer,
yes.
Are you replying to him, or you want to make a contribution, or is he out of order?
But,
you want to inform him?
Madam Speaker, I wanted to inform him because he's misquoting the miscellaneous amendment. He should point us to that. He's misleading the House.
Honorable Chris Wamala, you can clarify. You wanted to inform you. Maybe have asked whether you wanted information from her. But maybe you can.
Madam Speaker, the majority has just come now. He was not here when this bill was being moved. And Honorable Shali, in his notes, when he was moving this, I've been paying a lot of attention. And that's why I started by saying, we leave this matter to the respective chairs because of the internalized. And I mentioned his name. Even when Honorable Ken Lusaka's name came in, When Honorable Ken, I think majority
It's a
leader should
house
give
of
us time
debate.
because he
It's
was
a
not
house of-
here.
Honorable Chris Wamala.
He was not here when we were moving this.
Honorable Chris Wamala, let's hear what is.
Madam Speaker,
Yes,
I
Honorable
was
Leader
in my
Majority.
office and I was following the debate, so whether I was not here or not. But Madam Speaker, Honorable Chris, a man I respect a lot, must know that in a presidential system of government, and the reason why we pulled down those bills today is that the chairs of those committees, and we said under the new the 12th Parliament that we will not deal with a bill if the report have not been tabled. And the chairs have consulted my office and that of the Speaker. And we have agreed that all government bills, even in the US, all jurisdictions, it is the leadership who will sign, and the committee is supposed to critique. So they cannot have a bill in their signature and critique that bill again. So they're like when the bill comes for second reading, Madam Speaker, the mover, who is the leader of majority or any of his representative, the deputy or the whip, will move, and the chair is supposed to second and give the stakeholders views. That has happened with the roads bill. That will happen with the metropolitan bill. That will happen with the cybercrime bill. Honorable Kisang is out of the country in Geneva. Honorable Posing says he will only table the metropolitan tomorrow. So this was a bill, in fact, Madam Speaker, which lapsed in last Parliament. It was looked into by the Honorable Chepkonga, and we have just republished it. It's a small bill. So we are looking at that, and I'm sure Honorable Chris was not privy to that. We have agreed in future, the chairs will be here, and the membership of that committee will be here to now give the stakeholders views based on the amendments they're going to forward. But I'm sure everything is okay. And Honorable Chris Wamalwa, we have agreed with you as part of the leadership that we are going to make sure this
say that the commissioners will now serve on full-time basis. I propose that the commissioners continue serving on part-time basis, because in any case, they depend on experts who work in the secretariat. And this should be the case with all other constitutional commissions, even IEBC and the others, so that we can reduce the wage bill. The other matter that I want to comment on, Madam Speaker, is on the issue of statutory instruments. Madam Speaker, I am a member of the Committee on Implementation. And we had a meeting this week and noticed that there are many, many laws which require some statutory regulations which are pending. They have not been done. This is a serious matter that we need to look at, because if we don't come up with these statutory instruments in time, then it will defeat the purpose of having those laws. For example, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy my friend Minority Whip is here. He's from the Sugar Belt area. Majority Whip is here. Our farmers, sugarcane farmers, have been crying for the relevant ministry to come up with sugar regulations. That has not been done. We need a system to ensure that the relevant government agencies are able to process the regulations in time and table them before the House. Because many things go wrong because regulations have been delayed to be tabled in the House. So as we look at this, Madam Speaker, we need, as a parliament, to look. I support this portion.
Your last portion, you are not on mic. But it's good are you through? Your last portion, you're not on mic. Maybe I can give you 1 minute.
I think I had finalized that I support, with those amendments, I support this bill.
That's a very important point. Thank you. The House of Reps. Mossad. We have the Honorable Mutai Kiplangat, member for Bureti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the bill, the amendments before the House. On the issue of SRC, Madam Speaker, I believe that it's about time we made this SRC, streamlined it. That's the word I should use. We streamlined it. I do support, Madam Speaker, the appointment of chairperson by the President. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, the chairperson, the Constitution does not strictly cast in stone on the methodology of getting a chairperson, but it strictly says who are the nominees, which areas the nominees ought to come from. But it silently, but expressly gives the powers to the President to appoint. Complete. The review of salaries, evaluation of the work by state officers and public officers is almost done. What new thing will the current SSC do on a full-time basis? We are talking, Madam Speaker, of wages, which is ballooning in this country, and having a full-time commissioners working on a full-time would be to raise that wage bill. Most of the work that SRC did when they came in 2013 was to evaluate most of the work by the public officers. There's nothing new. Most of the work done is the same work done from Monday to Friday. The same environment, the same conditions, the same terms. So I don't see any need to have SRC working on a full-time. We can have them serving on a part-time basis, and when any new challenges arise, that is when they are called to look into the issue. But having them on a full-time, Madam Speaker, I don't think is too fit for this country. Likewise, Madam Speaker, the SRC that we saw was mostly centered, as my colleague said, Mr. Honorable Osotsi, that we've seen the wage bill balloon. Instead of the wage bill coming down, we are seeing the wage bill ballooning. Madam Speaker, it's not to say that SRC is the panacea for this ballooning wage bill. The parameters that are already set are enough for a disciplination called Kenya to follow suit. But they are not the panacea for the ballooning wage bill. So on that aspect, on that part of the bill, Madam Speaker, I do think fit that we have an SRC working on a part-time. Next one, Madam Speaker, is the issue of the amendment of the pensions that the bill is proposing to amend the Pensions Act to insert a new definition on the term of minister and to increase the number of years an officer must have completed from 5 to 10 years of pensionable service. That will, Madam Speaker, make majority of the Kenyans suffer. We are facing challenges currently, Madam Speaker, on the issue of pension by most of our elders, our fathers that are retired. Extending the term of 5 years to 10 years, Madam Speaker, will be subject them to difficult and harsh conditions. These are persons, Madam Speaker, that have served diligently. They've done this country proud, and extending the service pensionable to from 5 to 10 would be to cut out certain sector of the community that would have benefited. If you look at the amendment, it says pensions is a right, that when an officer has completed 5 years of pensionable service, the benefits accruing that officer under this act shall vest in the officer and shall become payable in such manners. Now, to extend that to 10 years, that would be to cut out most people who in any given day they would have benefited. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker.
And I want to also encourage them that as we go to the third reading, they need to make sure that their opinion is captured in the amendments. They should go ahead and propose amendments that then would improve this bill. This bill, Madam Speaker, it has a few other issues that we'll need to look at. In fact, I have just noticed there's a typo on page 1428 under section 125.5. The one that was proposing to delete the words "a vice chairperson to the tribunal" and substitute it, therefore, the words "a chairperson to the tribunal from amongst the persons appointed under paragraph A, B, and C of subsection 1, and a vice chairperson from 2. Instead of going direct from the tribunal amongst all members, they have indicated there are 2. And I just want to use this opportunity to notify the drafters that there is a typo there which we will need to have amended. Otherwise, Madam Chair, this bill was brought to the floor of the House after, as I indicated during my moving, after 24 memorandums were written to the Speaker. And after the bills that were approved in this House had been operationalized, and that's how these stakeholders noted the problem that they had while operating under these acts. Therefore, given that members have given their opinion, I think it's in order that we go ahead and amend the bill under third reading so that this bill can end up serving Kenyans as required by law. Madam Speaker, I beg to reply.
You beg to reply. Honourable members, having the bill replied, and for reasons cited very well in your standing orders, the obvious reasons, I am not in a position to put the question to the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment, number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bill, number 44 of 2017. Order members, order members. Honourable members, pursuant to Standing Order number 30, I thank you all.